Oh, I had to mute myself last night. I had to mute myself last night. I had to. Okay, why am I getting so much feedback? 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 Okay, now we're good. All right, there we go. Inception. Why am I getting so much feedback? Why am I getting so much feedback? These are not the droids you're looking for. Okay, I've got it all figured out now. Again, I apologize. I'm switching over to StreamYard, to OBS. And what did Christy do to the soundboard? Yeah, you know what? Blame Christy. That's it. Blame Christy. No, I had the sound on Rumble Studio going, and so it was kind of giving me some feedback there. So there we go. There we go. We're here. It is the week in review, and what a week it's been, man. Back-to-back weeks where it's just been insanity. Just absolutely craziness. And so here we are to unpack it all. And yeah, let me see. Brian is in a feedback loop. My break work will not work if I am tripping. My break work, your brain work will your break work. I don't know what that means. Okay, let me get my composure back here for just a second while I get my I gotta get everything goose frobbled back in. All right, here we go. So yesterday when we did daily, Chris Paul and I kind of went, "You're still getting an echo? I think you're crazy. Nobody else is saying anything about an echo except MedBeds. So I think MedBeds is the crazy one here. Is anybody else getting an echo? Give me the thumbs up. I got to get the 5x5 before I can carry on. Because that would be disastrous if I go off this page and I can no longer see the chat and then I'm getting 5x5 at MedBeds. You might want to check your stuff out. I was going to say I was going to say another word, but I'm not going to because that would be really mean. All right. So let's, hold on, let's get this all set up here. All right, I can check myself, and we are good to go. Okay, we are good to go, 5x5, getting the thumbs up. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up. And like I was saying before MedBed started tripping balls, that was his words, not mine. On Friday's show, Chris Paul and I kind of went off into a discussion more so than news. And so there was a lot of stories I didn't get to, and I want to cover those stories. We're going to do those right out the rip here. Nothing crazy, so it shouldn't take too long, but let's go ahead and make sure that we've got the right window up. Boom. There we go. From Bill Malusian on X, I'm told by federal sources, a Dominican illegal alien with a deportation order and an Interpol red notice arrest warrant for murder in his home country was ordered released from ICE custody on Tuesday in Rhode Island. Federal Judge Melissa DuBose made that order. I'm told that an international fugitive, Brian Rafael Gomez, was arrested by ICE in Boston and Worcester, which is, I think it's actually Connecticut, I think. I'll double check that. We're going to read the actual DHS piece here. On April 4th and had been detained in a facility in Rhode Island where he was issued a deportation order on April 28th by an immigration judge. On Tuesday, Judge DuBose ordered Gomez be released from ICE custody on the grounds of, quote, continuous unlawful detention, while ICE argued that Gomez was subject to mandatory detention due to having an international arrest warrant for homicide. All right, so jumping over here to Department of Homeland Security, activist Biden judge releases violent criminal illegal alien on January 4th of 2023. The coordination of the courts of instruction of the National District of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, issued a criminal arrest warrant for Brian Rafael Gomez for homicide. On April 4th of this year, the Worcester Police Department, or if it is the Massachusetts ones, it's definitely something like Worcester, because they say things really weird there, like the Worcester. The Worcester Police Department arrested Gomez for assault and battery. The detainer was honored, and after he was released on $500 bail, ICE arrested Gomez. On April 28th, U.S. District Judge Melissa DuBose ordered Gomez's release. Gomez entered the U.S. illegally in 2022 and was encountered by U.S. Border Patrol near Lukeville, Arizona. He was then released by the Biden administration. Now, one of the takeaways from this, you guys know me. I don't normally do the a Biden appointee, a Trump appointee. Judges are not supposed to be partisan positions. I understand that we're there, right? The positions are partisan. I get that. But I'm trying to kind of get away from that, because the more we embrace that, the more it's going to continue to happen. Okay. But it is noteworthy that this judge, Melissa DuBose, was appointed in the final days of the Biden administration. So as many of us know, a lot of the stuff that, went down in the final days, well, all of the days of the Biden administration, but especially the final days, there was a lot of shenanigans, right? The pardons, everything else. And, so I just thought that was noteworthy that this woman was appointed in the final days, right? And I mean, how does a federal judge order somebody that's been, like, there's an arrest call, a red notice out by Interpol? Do we not cooperate with Interpol? Genuine question. Does the U.S. not cooperate with Interpol? I thought we did. I mean, that would be very strange for us to hear, Interpol all over the place in movies and everything else. And then the U.S. is just like, yeah, we don't actually give them any credibility. So again, kind of strange, but hat tip to the weaponized judges. That was a sarcastic hat tip, by the way. Okay, let's play this clip here. President Trump signs an executive order on retirement funds. I'm all for this.
Beginning at the start of next year, every American will be able to go to TrumpIRA.gov and open a new low-cost IRA account. You'll then be able to access the same type of retirement accounts that federal employees enjoy through the thrift savings plans, which are incredible. As part of the Federal Savers Match Program, low-income Americans will be eligible to receive up to $1,000 per year in matching funds deposited directly into their accounts. It's a great thing. For millions of Americans who lack employer-sponsored plans, this will be really revolutionary because they'll be covered.
Let's go.
It's possible.
For
example, a 25-year-old who is eligible for a Savers Match Program invests just $165 a month under the matching federal contributions. They will have an estimated $465,000 in their account by the time they're 65 years old. In other words, they'll be rich. And there's something awfully nice about that. But this is only the first step. I was talking to Kevin Hassett a little while ago, and the people standing right behind me, we're going to take it to the next level. And the next level, Kevin, you're going to mention something, but the next level will be necessary to have congressional approval. What you just heard, we don't need congressional approval. And it'll never be terminated, because to terminate it, if somebody else is in office, to terminate it, you'd have to take that money away. You'd have to really take away something that's so positive. I don't think any politician would do it.
I love that part at the end there. For somebody to take this away, they would have to do something incredibly unpositive, dispositive. Something that nobody would want to see, right? Nobody wants to see their benefits taken away. I just realized I did not go live on Twitter. Darn, guys. I hope the Twitter crowd was able to find us this morning. I am just all over the place crap today. But his point there about no politician, you remember when he said that last? Do you remember what he was talking about last when he said that no politician will take it away, because then they'd have to take away money from the people, and that's wildly unpopular. Who remembers? He said it at the State of the Union. I'll throw that out there. He said it at the State of the Union. Somebody's going to know. F Twitter. X. FX. That was a TV. That's still a channel, isn't it? FX. He said at the State of the Union, nobody's going to take away the most favored nation status. Nobody's going to take away Trump RX. Pharma, Naturally Nikki got it. There you go. Big Pharma. I'm going to give it to Naturally Nikki, because I I said it already, but there's a 10-second delay, so you didn't hear it yet. So Nikki got it. Paying attention. There we go. Yeah, he said the same thing about that at the State of the Union. Nobody's going to take this away. You'd be insane to take this away. Like, go to the people and be like, hey, we're funding all this other shit, but when we're taking away your Trump IRA. We're taking away your Trump RX. We're taking away all those things. Not going to happen. Now, what's interesting about this, let's go to the Kevin Hassett clip, because Trump alludes at the end and says, we got to go to Kevin Hassett for the next aspect of this. And so here is that aspect. Maybe not. Hold on. Where is it? Why is it? Do I have to switch this every single time? No. This is, you know what? This might not work out so great. Okay, there we go. There we go.
What we're already talking, Chairman Smith and I, about, and I've been talking with Mr. Smucker about this for a number of years, is that we're going to expand this program that you're creating here, which is for low-income people, to middle-income people and maybe above as well, so that every American, most high-income people have an employer that gives them a 401k with a match, but low-income people or Uber drivers or something, they don't have access to that. They don't have access to the match. What you've done here is you've given the match to low-income people with incomes below $35,000. But we think that there are a lot of people, even who make more than that don't have any assets for retirement. And so we're working with Congress to significantly expand this program, and are looking forward for legislation this year to expand this.
All right. By the way, I love Trump having two F-35s on each side of the statue of Abe Lincoln. I love that. All right, so there you have it. So the way that this plan worked, and let me just pull up my notes here. So this plan that Trump is unveiling right now, the one that he can do without Congress, is utilizing the Savers Match rules, and this applies up to $20,500 for a single filer and $41,000 for joint filers. Okay, so again, that's not going to benefit a lot of people, to be honest with you. Trump says if you could put aside $165 a month, well, somebody that's making $20,000 a year, or $41,000 as a married couple, they're not going to be able to put aside $165 a month. That is very, very difficult, right? And then once they're outside of that threshold, they're no longer going to be eligible at all. And so, that kind of is, to be totally honest here, what Trump's saying in the beginning there is more a shot at Congress to do this. Because when people go and they actually look and they're like, hey, what's up with this? Why I make $21,000 a year. Why can't I do this? Or I make $50,000 a year. I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. Why can't I do this? I make $80,000. I make $100,000. Why can't I do this? So you're going to need Congress to expand those parameters, right? To expand those numbers and make it so that this bill, this savings plan, the thrift savings plan, which is a really good plan. You get like 6.5%, 7% returns on the thrift savings plan. And so that's a pretty big deal right there. So, 165 a month is half of my dispo budget. I'm not sure what dispo is. Disposal. Yeah, I'm not sure. But hey, put it aside. And then when you retire in 20 years, you can have $465,000. I like it. But again, it's just not something that's very doable for most people in that income class, right? I mean, they're trying to make car payments. They're trying to pay rent, and rent is through the frickin' roof right now. Dispensary. I thought that's what you meant by dispo. I just never call them a dispo. I figured you meant dispensary. But remember, last night, and I saw somebody in the chat say, who was it? Where'd it go? Alan WS, we loved your date night last night. We played a game. Please turn my mic up. Is my mic not loud enough, guys? Is my mic not loud enough? I can turn it up a little bit, but I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, but one of the date night questions was if you could have an unlimited amount of something, what would it be? And the whole object is for us to both put down our answers and see either the best answer, whether they match, whatever the case might be. And in this one, it was to see if we could match answers, and we both matched weed. not a tough one for me, but okay, so the sound is good. So I don't know. D-Dale says it's low. Some people are saying it's low. Some people are not. Most people are not. So I'll just leave it as it is, guys. I do want to point this out just because I thought that this was utterly stupid that we're even talking about this, but apparently there was a ghost, and by ghost I mean an SPLC-funded Klansman walking through the streets of, where was this? Rhode Island. Rhode Island. Not a place you expect to see a lot of Klansmen. And apparently, like, this was worthy of a New York Post story, that a guy decided to wear a Klan's outfit. Again, it's Rhode Island, probably SPLC funded, probably a hoax. Got to make sure we try and incite some violence or something. Or maybe the guy was just trying to go out there and get a rile out of somebody. I don't know. It's kind of creepy. Kind of creepy. I could see the SPLC cash falling out of his robes right here as he's walking. And then he turns around. I mean, that's the creepy part, right? Like when he turns and looks at you like that. That's the creepy part right there. Some weird shit. I don't even know why that's like a story. But apparently that's been making its rounds. Oh no, I just deleted my next story. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So Trump put out this Truth Social. Again, not a whole lot to this other than it's amazing how our relationship with Iraq is evolving. Congratulations to Ali al-Zaidi on his nomination to be the next prime minister of Iraq. We wish him success as he works to form a new government free from terrorism that could deliver a brighter future for Iraq. We look forward to a strong, vibrant, and highly productive new relationship between Iraq and the United States. This is the beginning of a tremendous new chapter between our nations. Prosperity, stability, and success like never seen before. Again, Ali, congratulations, President Donald J. Trump. How cool would that be if President Trump just continues on the peace path in the Middle East? Brings peace to Iraq. I mean, we're making peace with all sorts of countries in the Middle East, the Saudis, the UAE. I mean, we've always kind of had a good relationship, but a much better relationship. And then, of course, I think ultimately we end up at some sort of a relationship with Iran, and that's going to really melt some brains. But kind of along the lines of the same story as this, I want to point this out. Scott Jennings. We all love Scott Jennings, right? He says the totally base things on CNN. And we're all like, yeah, we got representation on CNN now. Scott Jennings says the good things. And I like Scott Jennings. To be totally fair, I like Scott Jennings. But every once in a while, he shows you that he is still a Bush-era Republican. He worked in the Bush administration. And this isn't quite the gotcha that people are framing this out to be, because the gotcha guy here does, to an extent, have a point. So this is Scott Jennings on CNN this week. I think it was on Thursday night, going off on a leftist podcaster, I guess. Check this out.
I mean, honestly, they have been at war with us for 47 years.
We all know that Scott Jennings is more than happy to defend a war with a country that starts with the letters IRA that we are currently failing, that is going to put us trillions and trillions of dollars more in debt. I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars. Now this war is failing.
8 weeks is in.
Okay, so let me just back up. So he's saying you've never been opposed to a war that with a country that starts with IRA. That's a shot at Iraq. And Jennings was a proponent of the Iraq war. So I'm with him on that. However, classifying Iran as a forever war, and it's been like a month and a half, 2 months. It's not even 2 months yet. And it's not a war. It's not a war. It can't be a war if we don't have anybody on the ground other than, some special forces, but we have those guys everywhere. It can't be a war, right? It can't be. But I kind of get the point. Now, everything else from here on is all Scott Jennings.
failing.
8 weeks is endless to you?
Okay, you said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
You have the attention span of a gnat? Is that
Homie,
what
I debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remarks because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way. Wait, one more time.
Not
Can you
going your
name
way.
one political
Get your
concession.
fucking hand out of my
Name
face
one political
first.
concession.
Hey, whoa, guys,
Honestly, I'm not
excuse me.
going to have this guy's hand
Everybody,
in my face.
everybody, hang tight,
Honestly.
okay? No, everybody calm down, okay? We're having a debate. You can respond to the points that he's making.
Can you name a political concession that we've got?
I just had a flashback to the war the skinheads had in my studio.
I would be mad if
Geraldo.
You can respond.
We have
and
a
then
very
we'll move on.
simple. We have a very simple goal: to keep terrorists and a terrorist regime from having a nuclear weapon that can threaten the United States, our interests in the region, our allies in Europe, anybody else
So
in
you
the world.
can't answer the question.
That is,
Thank
that
you.
is
I
our
would get
goal.
mad too.
All right, we're going to leave it there, guys. Next for us.
I mean, I don't think that was really the own that he thought it was. Like, I totally get the keep your hand out of my face thing. I totally get that. Like, if I'm having a debate with somebody, but the way that he snapped, get your fucking hand out of my face, not a good look, man. But also, I'm very tired of the we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. They haven't. We've been hearing that shit for years. That's so tired. I think what Trump is doing is well beyond that. I think most would agree. We've talked about this ad nauseum, so we're not going to address it again. I just thought that was really funny to watch that exchange right there, and that is my comedic point of order for this morning's show. Now, let's stay on the Middle East and go into this story from Just the News. Ghost actually talked about this on Tuesday on Badlands Daily, and it was kind of a little bit of a small, segment that he covered. But let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the United Arab Emirates exiting OPEC from Just the News. UAE exit from OPEC, just the latest blow to the cartel, whose global might was already undermined by U.S. oil. And I think this is a lot to do with what Trump's doing over there. I think this is a lot to do. The UAE has ambitions to increase its oil and gas productions, and this has brought it into conflict with other members of the cartel, primarily Saudi Arabia. The production quotas the group set were aimed at keeping prices higher, and that worked well when the Middle East was the primary energy producer in the world. The U.S. shale revolution spoiled that framework by launching the country to the top position as the world's largest oil and gas producer. USA, where is it? All right, we got the USA chant going this morning. Unlike the OPEC system of producer-focused industries, the U.S. system is consumer-driven. There are over 9,000 independent small producers that account for 85% of U.S. oil and gas production. All of them are in competition with each other to produce the most oil for the least amount of money. Capitalism. Over the past decade, the cartel has lost members: Indonesia in 2016, Qatar in 2019, Ecuador 2020, Angola in 2023. None of those are anywhere near as big as the UAE, though, in terms of losing them in production. I don't think. Qatar might be close. But, anyways, it says in July of 2021, a clash between the UAE and the Saudis ended up forcing the adjournment of a meeting of OPEC Plus. And OPEC Plus is beyond just the original founders of OPEC. The UAE backed down under pressure from the Saudis. While the conflict in Iran provides the UAE cover for its departure, the main drive is that it can produce more oil while being a member of the cartel. The country has its sights set on producing 5 million barrels a day by 2027. And Bloss, that's Javier Bloss of Bloomberg, to be fair, Bloomberg, and Bloss predicts that now that it's getting up from under the OPEC thumb, it will set even higher targets for 2030. The UAE's departure is going to inspire more of its members to go it alone. Venezuela is a likely candidate. I like this little segment here because I think this is going to look bad in the long run. I think the opposite of this is going to be true. Just the News says the government of Delcy Rodriguez is supportive of OPEC. The country's opposition party is not. If the next election puts the party in power, Venezuela will likely leave the cartel. I don't believe that for a second. I mean, I know Rodriguez is, friendly to OPEC because, Venezuela is one of the founding members of OPEC. But I think once they're proposed with an offer from the Trump administration to, have sort of a conglomerate within the United States and within the Western Hemisphere, I think Venezuela could leave OPEC. And I think it would be more likely under the Delcy Rodriguez regime. You would have to imagine that the globalists in the United States, the Praetorian Guard, the intelligence community in the United States, you would have to imagine that they would want stability with the petrodollar through OPEC and the Middle East. I could be wrong on that. I very well could be wrong on that. But Delcy Rodriguez would be the one that would be more in line, I think, with President Trump. And she's shown so far to be a worthy ally since the January extraction, capture, whatever you want to call it, of Nicolas Maduro. So I don't know if this is propaganda to try and, bolster Maria Acuna Machado more. I'm not sure, but it could be. Who knows? An American OPEC couldn't function like the OPEC cartel because they would restrict production to keep prices high. If U.S. companies tried to restrict to keep production high, they would be violating antitrust laws, and convincing thousands of companies to get on board with that scheme is not plausible. There could, however, be more coordination between the oil-producing countries in North and South America, primarily the U.S., Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela. So they say right there in their own words that Venezuela would be among the major producers in Florida that could get engaged in this. And I don't know. This is interesting. With Trump's blockade, OPEC is getting hammered right now. Iran, there's other countries in the Strait of Hormuz that are suffering from this. And the U.S. is a huge benefactor. China is a huge victim of this. Victim, whatever you want to call it. They're taking huge losses on this blockade. They're no longer getting their energy at 15 to 20% discounts through sanctioned Iranian oil. So, again, I don't know. Is the nuclear weapon just kind of an excuse for Trump to get in there and do this? I don't know. Did Israel force his hand? I don't know. The fog of war on this is crazy. And the worst part about it, and I know this might not be something that everybody appreciates being said, but I want Iranians' internet turned back on. Can we get them Starlink? Remember when Russia and Ukraine were going at it, and Elon was like, "I'm getting you Starlink, Ukraine. We're bringing in Starlink." And now we have Iran, where only like less than 2% of the population allegedly has internet access. I would like to hear the stories coming out of Iran. You can only form a well-educated opinion on something is if you're looking at both sides. So right now we're just getting the American side, the Trump administration, the globalists, the deep state, all the think tanks and all that. They're the ones that are influencing everything right now. And I mean, as much as I would like to get all my news from Trump because it would make us feel really good, I want to get their side too. So we are getting a little bit from like Araghchi's foreign minister page, and some of the Iranian pages are putting out like the Lego movies and all that stuff. And they're interesting. But again, it's not, actual on the ground accounts from people in Iran. So, all right, that does it. That does it for the catch-up section, so to speak. So let's take a pause right there. Maybe we'll hit a sponsor. We should probably do that. We should probably hit a sponsor before we continue on. And let's go ahead and let's talk about the fall of Minneapolis. Guys, here's a quick word about one of the most important documentaries that you'll watch this year. It's called The Fall of Minneapolis, and it's produced by Alpha News and award-winning journalist Liz Collin. She's been covering this very, very well. The film blows the lid off what really happened with George Floyd, the trial, the media lies, the police body cam footage they never showed you, and how an innocent city was burned while good cops were thrown under the bus. It's already been watched over 10 million times and praised by the late Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, Jack Posobiec, Dinesh D'Souza, Tim Pool, and many more who care about truth and justice. The best part, it's 100% free right now. No subscription, no paywall. Just go to The Fall of Minneapolis at thefallofminneapolis.com, or you can search for it here on Rumble, and you can watch it for free. It's fantastic. I saw it a long time ago. Very, very well done. And if this film opens your eyes like it has for millions of others, please consider a 100% tax-deductible donation at alphanews.org so that they can wake up even more Americans. You deserve the real story. Give it a watch tonight. Thefallofminneapolis.com, or search for it on Rumble. 10 out of 10 recommend. 10 out of 10. All right. Worldwide fraud goes down in double digits in a hurry. I agree. We're watching a lot of awesome stuff right now taking place. A lot of awesome stuff. Okay. And then we're watching some not so awesome stuff like this. Assassination attempt on President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Crazy. They had a mentalist predicting Caroline Leavitt's baby's name. You hear the shots in the background, and then they pull POTUS out of there. Good response by the TAC team for Secret Service. All right, so there's that story there. There's more stuff to it. Let's see. What's another worthy video? This one was a little bit concerning to me. They got JD Vance out like right away, and you see Trump's Secret Service detail kind of, waiting around. Now Trump says it's because he wanted to see. I wanted to see what was going on. Yeah. I didn't notice the woman that was sitting next to him right here. She's like, oh, can I go with you guys? She's like trying to poke her way in there. I just noticed that now. And then like she's down like there's actively shots being fired. Look, when I heard this, I've said, the Butler shooting is one of those moments in U.S. history where you're going to remember where you were, right? If you're old enough to be around for JFK, you'll remember where you were when you heard that JFK was shot and killed. You'll remember exactly where you were. 9/11, you'll remember exactly where you were on 9/11. I will never forget it. I know the teacher's name. I know the next class that I went to when I saw it for the first time on television. You'll remember it. And you will never forget where you were when you heard President Trump had been shot in Butler. Now, for this one, it's not as memorable of an experience, but I remember the gut feeling that I had when I first saw the reports coming out that there was an assassination attempt on President Trump. Or that's not even how it was phrased. President Trump has been evacuated from John Lennon's death. That's another good one. Michael Jackson. We talked about this last night on date night. Michael Jackson. I was in boot camp. I remember exactly where I was in boot camp being interviewed for eighth and I duty. You'll remember these things. These are things that will stick in your brain forever. So when I heard it, my gut sank, and I just immediately went straight to my phone, straight to Twitter, trying to get all the stories, all the information I possibly could, because that is a very real threat, especially with President Trump. It's always a threat with the president, but especially with President Trump, like infinitely more than any other president that we've had in our lifetimes. Obviously not JFK. Reagan, there was an assassination attempt on Reagan. He got shot. So there's that too. JFK, fourth grade in school, teacher crying, so sad, beach Nana. Yep. It's one of those. John Lennon's death on my way to work at 7 a.m. when I heard it in the morning, bummed out the whole day. Yep. These are the moments. I was at home with a freshly broken wrist and was supposed to be at the Butler rally. Wow. Thank God. Not that, it's not likely that you would have been hurt, but thank God. Yeah. I was on the phone with Jim Hoft, my boss at Gateway. And we were on the phone. I was sitting right here in this chair. And he goes, holy shit, Trump just got shot. And I went to RSBN immediately because I knew they'd have the rally live. And I started rewinding it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, hold on, though. I think it just grazed him. That's the first thing I said. I was like, I think it just grazed him because he went and grabbed his ear and then they got him down. But I mean, it's one of those things you'll never forget. You'll never forget where you were. Whitney Houston singing the national anthem at the Super Bowl during first Iraq war deployment was the best ever. Whitney was the best ever. Nobody will ever beat that. So, all right. So there it is. There's more stuff that came out on this. President Trump did an interview.
The so-called
The manifesto was published, and we're not going to cover the manifesto. I did on Daily, and it's just not really worth it. But this was President Trump on 60 Minutes talking about it.
The so-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote.
I mean, President Trump is spot on with that. That is absurd. And then to be like, oh, you think he was talking about you? No shit, Sherlock. No shit. Who do you think he was talking about when he said that? Because you guys, your Democrat buddies, have been saying this for the last, since the Epstein release. Trump's a pedophile. Trump's a pedophile. What evidence do you have of this? Well, we don't really have any, but he's mentioned in the Epstein files. Yeah, so are about 10,000 other people. So what? And I did an hour-long breakdown of why I think Trump is the whistleblower, why I think Trump is the informant, like a legit informant against Jeffrey Epstein. Will we ever get this information? I don't know. I hope so. I would love to. I would love to get that news because I do. I firmly believe that Trump was an informant against Epstein. Everything points to that. Epstein's own words point to that. He's the dog that hasn't barked, right? He's somebody that the dog that hasn't barked means that they sold him out. The person was a known friend, right? And therefore, kind of got into their circle, and that's why they let their guard down. They didn't catch him because it was somebody they knew and they thought was trustworthy. The dog that hasn't barked was Trump. They said that. Him and Ghislaine. 10 years after the fact, trying to figure out who's putting this information out, who's saying these things. And he was referring to Virginia Giuffre. And then in that same email, the media trying to smear President Trump puts out, oh, Trump was alone with that girl at my house for hours. And then they redact the name of the victim, right? They redact the name of the victim, even though we all know who the victim is. It was Virginia Giuffre, who, when she was still alive, before she suicided in Australia, said clearly President Trump was nothing but gentlemanly towards me. He was he never attacked me. He never tried to, nothing. He was always a gentleman. And so, the media is part of this. And for them to come out and say, well, you thought that was about you? You thought we were talking about you? Let me see if I can find the part right here in the manifesto where he makes pretty damn clear that it's him. So first and foremost, just releasing this manifesto. It was out. Let's see. The shooting was on Saturday. This was published on the 26th. So Friday was the 24th. Saturday was the 25th. The next day, we have the manifesto. We still don't have the manifesto of the Tennessee shooter in its entirety. We don't have the manifesto of a lot of these shooters. They keep that stuff private. So why would you release if these manifestos, right, if you have all these kind of isolated shootings, they're not really going to, I mean, they might like incite some more violence, right? But it's not, it's not as imminent a threat as this is. This is a guy putting out fake rhetoric about a man that has no such accusations formally levied against him outside of the mainstream media and some retarded Democrats. And they published this. Like New York Post, you should be ashamed. They want to get the drop on this story. But he says, I'm no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. There's another part. By the way, when he says administration officials, not including Mr. Patel, they are targets, prioritized from highest ranking to lowest. I still don't understand why Patel was not included in this. So here's the part where, like, how do you not know that it's Trump that this guy is referring to? He says most people chose to attend a speech by a pedophile, rapist, and traitor. I mean, who else do you think it would be? Is that woman really? Is she really that dumb? Oh, you thought they were talking about you? No shit, Sherlock. No shit. Well, I mean, if it was somebody else in that room, and there were a lot of celebrities, there were a lot of famous people, well-known people. I shouldn't call celebrities, I shouldn't call journalists and news reporters celebrities, although they want that celebrity status. They want that, they want to be the next Tom Cruise, or, they want the recognition from people, and they want, all that. But well-known people. If you're going to try and kill a well-known person, murder a well-known person, the last place you would ever want to do it is when they're in the room with the president of the United States. Why? Because it's very difficult to get into that room. So it was clearly President Trump. I mean, this is so stupid. So stupid. A lot of people were raising concern about the security. Carrie Lake, I can't believe how lax the security was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner upon entering. Nobody asked to visibly inspect my ticket, nor asked for my photo ID. All one had to do was flash what appeared to be a ticket, and they were fine with that. When you consider you're entering a room full of fake news media, 90% of whom hate the president, you would think they would have better security. This is what happened when what sounded like gunfire erupted. Another post here. My best friend and I went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and we ended up leaving early because something felt off. It started the second we got there. Every event we've been to, especially at this level, there are layers of security. Bag checks, ID checks, the actual process. This time, nothing. We were just asked if we had tickets. We said yes, and we were waved through. No bag check, no real screening, no line, just thousands of people packed together being pushed through the doors as fast as possible. Now, you could say, well, there was security. So let's look at this, and this just literally clicked on me with me right now. So we got the first video of the gunman, and then we got more and more video, right? We got more and more video as the week has gone on. And the first video that Trump put out was very grainy. Then we got an AI rendering that was crappy. And now we got this version, which is much better. Let me go to where he's actually running through. This is, maybe this isn't the act. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Okay, so remember when, come on, this is him walking to the event. By the way, all these doors, I don't know where they all go, but nobody's on these doors. I would imagine the way he's walking and he's going to turn left in this building, I would imagine those doors led to right here, perhaps. So I just want to point out, what is the Secret Service doing right here? Watch what the Secret Service is doing right here. They are putting up the magnetometers, or are they breaking them down? Maybe they're breaking them down. I guess they're breaking them down. Okay, that's fair. Okay, never mind. Disregard that. I thought they were setting them up. But there he goes, running through. So let's unpack this, because I think they go in slow-mo. So here's the slow-mo version. So the dog looks, well, we don't need the slow-mo because I can just click through it. There's one key thing that I think was missed here. Okay? So this door is wide open. First and foremost, that door should never be open. That door should not be open. He walks right through. Okay? It does look like there's a little bar there. Maybe that was the thing going across. It might be a double door, but that door should not be open. Okay? Also, the dog goes and looks at something, hits on something. Maybe he's trained to smell gunpowder. Maybe not. But then when the guy's done here, the canine, when he's done here, he goes to his left. Okay, and then the guy runs through. This door's open. There should be somebody on this side of the door, on the magnetometer side of the door, not the other side. You would never have a door open without a barrier between the egress or the entrance and the route into the event. So this guy, when he went to the left, he should have went this way. And I know that's like nitpicking stuff, but these are the kinds of things in a tactical environment that you have to think about. Right? These are the things you have to think about. And I do feel very bad for the cop down here, the Secret Service officer down here. She's the first to react. She draws her gun. She sees something going on. She draws her gun. But look at the line right here that she has to shoot. She's got 3 TSA agents up here on the wall. She's got 2 Secret Service guys on the ground right there. She's got an agent over here. Now, they've said that she didn't hit anybody. And if that's the case, mad respect to her. Mad respect to her. So her first shot, let's see. I think they do a breakdown of this, but I'm just going to pause it when I see it. So the guy comes running in. She realizes something's going on right there. So he made it like 10 feet in. And he's carrying a long gun. He's carrying a shotgun. She draws as he's coming through the magnetometer right there. I mean, if she would have reacted right away, and granted, I understand. She was probably Cooper's yellow, maybe even white. But she was Cooper's yellow at most. And she should have been Cooper's orange. So her first shot was right there. And their second shot was right there. So this shot was a good shot. Nobody's in the background there, but the first shot, thankfully it didn't hit anybody, but anyways, we're taking way too long on something that's been beaten down. So again, God bless President Trump, and let's continue to pray for him and his safety. Because I mean, I'm telling you, unfortunately, and nobody wants to think like this, but unfortunately, it's probably not going to be the last. It's not the first. I think somebody had said there's been over 17, Keck. Oh, man. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next big story of the week. Fox News, James Comey indicted for alleged threats against Trump. The DOJ. Indictment here. On or about May 15th in the Eastern District of North Carolina, James Brian Comey Jr. did knowingly and willfully make a threat to take the life of and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States, and that he publicly posted a photograph on the internet social media site Instagram, which depicted seashells arranged in a pattern making out 8647, which a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an attempt to do harm to the President of the United States. And again, this one's been hashed out. We've talked about it almost every day on Badlands Daily, so I'm not going to go crazy here. On its face, prima facie, I do not think this is a good indictment. I think there's a lot more that they can get Comey for. And there's rumors now of classified documents charges coming down on Comey. Great. Let's get him. Maybe Russiagate. Great. Let's get him. But again, I'm not there yet on this. All right. On its face, I'm not a fan of this indictment. Now, and I conceded this to Alpha, there could be more stuff that comes up. This was a grand jury indictment, so we're not going to get a whole bunch of stuff yet. We're not going to get all the evidence. It's grand jury. It's all going to be protected. We'll get it in court. We'll see evidentiary hearings in court, and then we'll get more stuff. And when we get that, then we can assess it. Okay? Again, You know, the idea that they got this indictment so that they could seize his stuff, again, that's a Fourth Amendment violation, guys. If you make a crime out of nothing in order to get something from somebody, you're violating their Fourth Amendment. All right. So who knows what this is going to play out? There's a whole bunch of speculation on what this indictment actually means, and it could be true. You know, some people I think it was Josh on DEF CON that was like, yeah, this could be Comey might be singing, but this is the way you can sing, right? You make it appear like you're a target of an investigation. You come in, you sing, you get it out there, and then you do it, you know, kind of safely, right? Because they think you're a subject, so they're like, oh no, they're going after him, and then you sing. You don't tell them that he's singing, and that's how it goes down. I'm okay with that. I think that could be true. But the way he fought the indictment over obstruction, which, by the way, to be clear, the obstruction of Congress, the lying to Congress, was a much better charge. Was it adequate? No, hell no. Comey has done so much bad shit through Russiagate, through the Steele dot, you know, through 2016, through all of that. And I think his crimes go back even further than that. But that was at least something that was a legit crime where you can actually see it. Posting a picture that somebody else allegedly made, the seashell formation, and saying a cool seashell formation is not going to rise to that level. Any lawyer would be able to get out of that on protected political speech. Protected political speech. I can see the argument. I just don't think you're going to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt without some significant evidence showing that he literally meant this as a dog whistle for others to do this. Like direct purpose. Not even a dog whistle. It has to be a full-blown train horn to other people to do this. And so, yeah. All right. Here, we got the green light guys back. Muted. Bye-bye. Sorry. You're not going to come in here and post your links with the green lights. It's not going to happen in my chats. Okay. Now, this one's going to be reading intense because this, I do believe, is a very legit indictment. This is the one, the Anthony Fauci indictment. I think this one's fascinating. So, hold on one second. I think we're going to hit another... let's hit another sponsor. Yeah, let's go ahead and hit another sponsor, and then we'll get into the Anthony Fauci indictment. This one's gonna be awesome. Or not Anthony Fauci, his senior advisor. Okay, guys, you're looking for entertainment that tickles the brain, funny bone, and the prostate. Check out Slaughterama and Adonis Paul's High Rollers. Join intergalactic crack dealer Sleazy P. Martini and cartoon casino owner Adonis Paul for the only trivia experience. You don't just watch, you play live in the chat. Appearance on screen, you appear on screen, and you even write your own trivia topics for the show. The first week of May is Epstein Week, where you can test your knowledge of the worst things imaginable or stump the host and guest with your own topics. Play strategically, bet your winnings, and lord your power over the chat. Search Sleazy P. Martini and Late Night with Adonis Paul on Rumble and bookmark now. We'll see you on Monday and Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern for Slaughterama and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern for Adonis Paul High Rollers. Don't wait to subscribe. It's only a matter of time until we get canceled for having too much fun. Don't miss out. All right, let's get into the next topic here. Anthony Fauci advisor indicted by DOJ on charges of concealing COVID records. David Morenz, 78, charged with 1 count of conspiracy against the United States, 2 counts of destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, and 2 counts of concealment, removal, or mutilation of records. The conspiracy includes alleged kickback schemes where Morenz was promised gifts, including wine bottles and meals at Michelin-starred restaurants, to conduct, quote, official acts favorable to a federal grantee. Now, this is gonna roll out Peter Daszak, and EcoHealth. This is the big story. We've been talking about this for years. And we're just now getting some movement on this. Hat tip to this had to have started under Bondi. So hat tip to Bondi, hat tip to Blanche, hat tip to the Trump administration, and piss off to the Biden administration, who had this information, for 2 years. But of course they wouldn't go after this because it's all going to tie back essentially to them. Information in the indictment indicates the co-conspirators are Peter Daszak and Dr. Gerald Cush, an associate director of Boston University's National Emerging Infectious Disease Laboratory Institute and National Institute of Health grantee. Jump down here into the meat and potatoes. Fauci is referred to as senior NIAID official number 1, but he is not named as a co-conspirator, perhaps because of the pardon. I don't know. Interesting theory that you got to test the pardon. You got to test the pardon. Is the auto pen pardon going to hold up in court? We don't know yet, but maybe not. Morenz, between April of 2020 and June of 2023, sought to reinstate millions of dollars in federal grants for EcoHealth and burnish its public image. They included grants of $4 million and $7.5 million. There are things that I can't say Tony is aware of, and I have learned that there are ongoing efforts within NIH to steer this through with minimal damage to you, Peter, and colleagues, and to NIH, and to NIAD. Morenz wrote to Daszak and Cush in an April 26, 2020 email from his private email account. So you got here Morenz saying, hey guys, there is ongoing efforts to subvert all of this information so it doesn't blow back on you. Ongoing efforts. I'm familiar with ongoing efforts to cover and conceal your identity in these crimes. And this is done as official government business between government officials on private emails. Daszak isn't official government. He's a grantee. Daszak then provided illegal gratuities, 2 bottles of the Prisoner Red Napa Valley wine to Morenz's home in June of 2020. I looked this up. It's like a $40 bottle of wine. Like what? You're bribing a guy. You just got millions of dollars from him and you're bribing him with a $40 bottle of wine? I mean, every once in a while, I'll get a nice bottle of Cabernet, a nice $40 bottle, once in a blue moon, maybe once a month. It's nice, but I'm not like this. I would never be like, oh, well, you sent me a $40 bottle of wine. I better really pay attention to you in the future and make sure that I that's so stupid, man. This is the first of what I hope will be a continued series of expressions of gratitude for your advice, support, and behind-the-scenes shenanigans in my battle against your boss's boss's boss and the ultimate boss on the Hill, Daszak wrote. Now I'm actually going to have to do something to deserve it. Let me think, Morenz responded. A $40 bottle of wine. 2 of them, $80 of wine. And he's like, bro, I'm indebted to you. Let me see if I can commit federal crimes and cover up yours because you gave me $40 and now I feel like I got to work for it. This is so stupid. I'm not saying like the indictment's stupid. I'm saying the motive is stupid. The motivation is stupid. Like, would you ever commit a federal crime for a $40 bottle of wine? Are you a raging alcoholic? Maybe. He might be. The NIAID director and then NIH director, Dr. Francis Collins, in February of 2020, quote unquote, prompted the notorious Proximal Origins paper that sought to downplay concerns about COVID leaking out to a Chinese lab, instead claiming that the outbreak was consistent with a natural origin. We know that was fake. Remember Francis Collins? Man, we miss Francis Collins. Remember his guitar? He played like, what was it, like Puff the Magic Dragon? Didn't he do that? Let me see if I can find that real quick. Let me see if I can find this. Was it Puff the Magic Dragon? He played something. This is the guy we're talking about right here. Wait. Man, I can't find it. Dr. Francis Collins playing guitar. He did like the really creepy one in his house. All right, I guess I can't find it. Sorry, guys. I mean, there's a bunch of him playing guitar, but not the one specifically that I'm looking for. It was during COVID. Well, maybe if I type in COVID. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Found it.
Poof, coronavirus came from overseas.
Oh my jeez.
Infecting folks across the land. Seattle, NYC. A little bats virus. Love those human cells. Next thing you know, the cases grow and the world has gone to. It's a family show. Heck. Poof, coronavirus came from overseas, infecting folks across the land. Seattle, NYC. Poof, coronavirus called COVID.
All right. Never forget these people, guys. Never forget these people. I think that was worth it. The retardation of Dr. Francis Collins. I think that was worth that, 2 minutes it took me to find that video. All right. So remember Francis Collins, that guy. But the scientific commentary to which Morenz was referring also advocated for a natural spillover theory of the virus. Emails published by Wenstrup's subcommittee, that's the COVID subcommittee in the House right now, and cited in the indictment, showed that Morenz was asking Daszak directly, do I get a kickback about the $7.5 million grant that he secured for EcoHealth? Daszak responded, of course there's a kickback. I hope it doesn't culminate in 5 years in federal jail for a $40 bottle of wine. Although he probably got some cash, too, for that one. Morenz frequently conducted government business from his Gmail account, a secret back channel, asking the NIH's FOIA liaison for tips on how to evade open records requests. Quote, there is no worry about FOIAs. I can either send stuff to Tony on his private Gmail or hand it to him at work or at his house, Morenz wrote in an April 2021 email. He is too smart to let colleagues send him stuff that could cause trouble. And then he goes on to say, Morenz in February said, quote, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I'm FOIA'd, but before the search starts. Morenz wrote that he would, quote, always communicate on Gmail because my NIH email is FOIA'd constantly, end quote, and, quote, delete anything I don't want to see in the New York Times. EcoHealth's proposal was never funded. That was never funded. Project Diffuse had been flagged by scientists and lawmakers for containing a quote-unquote blueprint for creating the virus that causes COVID-19. Ex-CDC Director Robert Redfield, he's a good guy, kind of, noted that even unfunded projects and proposals can be tested under other research grants that got funding. So I think the Comey indictment was, whatever. It is what it is. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. This was the big indictment over the weekend. Because you've got Morenz, you've got Daszak, who might be coming down the pipes. You got Collins, who could be coming down the pipes. And then you got whether or not we're going to try Fauci and find out if the auto pen pardons are actually going to hold up. But, and I said this on Daily. This week when I covered this story. We need to have an enhancer on crimes, federal crimes especially, dealing with bureaucrats and people of the executive branch, where if you are caught destroying documents in order to subvert FOIA, I don't even think you put the qualifier of subverting FOIA. If you're caught destroying documents, then it's an automatic enhancement on your crime. And it can stand alone. So in other words, if say this guy is completely let go, but he is found to have deleted documents, automatic prison sentence, 5 years. 5 years. And why? You might be like, well, 5 years, that's a little harsh just for destroying a document. Yes, but you need to send a message, first and foremost, because when you destroy that document, it is a crime not just against the statute that you can't destroy these documents. It's a crime against 330 million Americans from having any sort of transparency, from having any sort of accountability. And while he may have destroyed innocent documents that meant nothing, we don't know that, and we never will know that. And we don't know the extent of documents that he actually deleted. So by making that example and making everybody subject to this, you're putting the fear of God into these people, the fear of their freedom. And the same could be said if you subvert your .gov email and start doing this on Gmail or Hotmail or, you know, whatever it may be. We need this type of law. You know, there's another story about Congress making a rule that they can't participate in prediction markets anymore. And same with that. Like if you're caught subverting that by having, you know, like a beneficiary, like, hey, you call up your buddy and you're like, hey, you might want to bet on this event happening in the next week. You might want to bet, just wink, wink, nod, you know, nudge, nudge. And, oh, by the way, after the bet either comes to fruition or doesn't, I would love to go to Sicily for a week. And I would like to stay at the Ritz in Sicily on the water, and also a gondola tour in Venice. I would really like that. You know, it's one of my bucket list things. Okay, I got you, bro. I got you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? If you figure that shit out, that needs a mandatory minimum as well. 5 years. 5 years. Put the fear of God in these people. They are public servants. They are public servants, and they're serving themselves. And they're doing so and subverting any sort of transparency. So, I think this is the biggest indictment this week. I mean, the biggest indictment thus far, the Morenz one, because this could unravel a lot of the COVID stuff. And we did have Senator Ron Johnson had a COVID subcommittee hearing this week. And I've got a clip of that. Let me see where the heck I put it. I'm calling an audible here, so bear with me for 2 seconds while I try to find where I put this. Did I put it? Oh, I actually did. I put it in order. Look at me. I'm smart. I am so smart. I'm smart. I'm smart. Check this out. This is Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin.
For over 4 years, I have wondered how health officials could possibly ignore this overwhelming evidence of harm. Now I know. March 1st, 2021, less than 3 months after the COVID injections received an emergency use authorization, Peter Marks, the head of CBER, and officials reporting to him were warned by FDA's Dr. Anna Scharfman, an individual who these officials recognize as an expert in FDA's data mining, that the current system would mask safety signals for COVID injection adverse events. Dr. Scharfman proposed a new model, a new method, invented by Dr. William Dumichel of Oracle, the inventor of the current algorithm, to uncover the hidden safety signals. On March 26, 2021, 26 days later, Dr. Scharfman sent Dr. Dumichel's data analysis to senior FDA officials, showing that the new analytical method found, quote, 49 examples of extreme masking and uncovered approximately 25 statistically significant safety signals of adverse events associated with COVID injection, including, let's put up the next chart here. Here's the sheet. These are the adverse events that they were showing.
Okay, we can land that there. But so think of that. This report is now finding that there was a doctor at NIH. Was it NIH or at FDA? Hold on. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. FDA scientist Anna Scharfman that said, "Hey guys, there's a major problem here with this vaccine." With the studies on this vaccine, major problem. There appears to be some sort of an algorithm that is masking this, that is covering up safety signals. And they said, shut up about it. They told her, she went to the top brass, and they said, shut up about it. Again, this is probably more serious than the FOIA deletions. So maybe 10 years for this. This is a serious thing right here. I mean, this report that was put out by this committee found that the COVID vaccine was 55 times more dangerous than the flu vaccine. Now, I don't know, how dangerous the flu vaccine is, but anything that's 55 times more than something. Imagine somebody having $10 and being like, I got 55 times more than you do. I got $550. That guy with $10 is like, shit, I got nothing compared to you. You got $550. I got 10. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Third degree murder. There were deaths. There were deaths. Despite us being told there were not any deaths, there were deaths. All right. Let's jump into this story here. New York Post, would-be UFO whistleblower died of accidental drug overdose after agreeing to testify before Congress. And I don't know why, but my highlights disappeared. Usually they come back when I do that. Boom, there they are. Matthew James Sullivan died at his home in Falls Church, Virginia on May 12th, 2024. This is 2 years ago. From a lethal mix of alcohol, alprazolam, cyclobenzaprine, and imiperamine. Alprazolam is a generic Xanax, anxiety drug. Cyclobenzaprine is a powerful muscle relaxant. And imiperamine, or however you say that, is used to treat bedwetting and anxiety in children. So Sullivan earned a Bronze Star during OEF and later worked for the Air Force Intelligence Agency, National Air and Space Intelligence Center, and the no such agency known as the National Security Agency. We know it as the NSA. Sullivan held, quote, the burden that a select few in this nation have of truly understanding what's going on, said Major General David Abba, who served as Director of Special Programs and Director of the Department of Defense Special Access Programs at his funeral. Could you imagine somebody with that much clout going to your funeral and having, I mean, that's messaging to me. You have a Major General that was the Director of the Special Access Programs at the Department of Defense, and he's coming to a funeral of a guy that worked for the NSA, the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, and the Air Force Intelligence Agency. And he's saying this guy, he had the burden of a true understanding of what was going on. And then, again, you pair that with and that was back in 2024. It's not like this is something new. And then you pair that with all the missing scientists. Sullivan was part of a so-called legacy UFO program, the government's crash retrieval program. We have a crash retrieval program for UFOs? Come on now. I saw on OnlyLans last night talking about all the earthquakes around Area 51 right now. Fascinating stuff, man. Sullivan had personally seen UFOs in the federal government's possession and would have exposed the legacy program at the congressional hearing in November of 2024. It's all starting to make sense now. Then we had another one here. New researcher working on anti-gravity technology, whose death was ruled a suicide, sent a text just 1 month before her death saying she would never kill herself. Amy Eskridge was found with a gunshot to the head in Huntsville, Alabama. Eskridge told a friend that she had been the target of multiple physical and psychological attacks, including being a victim of a quote-unquote energy weapon before her death. Quote, if you see any report that I killed myself, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I overdosed, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I killed anyone else, I most definitely did not, she reportedly said in a text in May of 2022. In an interview before she died, Eskridge said she was getting scared and she needed to disclose soon.
Say out loud, maybe we should walk over there later. Found out that I was being physically surveilled by the following method. My ex-boyfriend and I realized that people had been breaking into our apartment while we were gone together in the same vehicle. And so, I'm in the apartment, I'm about to go to work, and I'm like, why don't you take out the trash and scope out the parking lot and make sure it's okay before I go to work? So he goes out there and he's like, there's this weird fucking Lexus. It's like a silver Lexus. This is a shitty apartment. Why is there really nice Lexus in the parking lot? And it has tinted windows that are not street legal, just totally dark, totally black tinted windows that are not possibly street legal. And so he comes back in and we're standing in our bedroom window looking at the Lexus and talking about it. And I say out loud, maybe we should walk over there later and take a picture of the license plate, because the Lexus is across the parking lot from us, but it's backed in, so you can't see the license plate. Within 2 minutes, of me saying, hey, we should walk over there later and take a picture of the license plate, we were still standing there at the window looking at it, talking about it. And an Eastern European looking motherfucker with a black beanie, dressed all in black, in his 50s or 60s, walked out of the apartment directly across from ours holding a license plate. And he opened the trunk of the Lexus and he took out some tools and he changed the license plate right in front of our fucking faces. And then he walked back to his apartment and he put the old license plate on the front patio and went inside, left it outside. And it was literally like, come get the license plate. I have more.
All right, we'll land that there. So again, very creepy, man. Very creepy. I don't know what she was working on, but I've told this story before. But I had something very similar, and it happened to me in 2022, where I came home from a trip to Arizona, and I took it by myself. I was out there in an official work capacity. It was a weekend trip, left on Friday, came back Sunday night. And I've told this story, but I came home and it was Sunday night and I had 3 dogs in my house. I have my 2 dogs at the time. I didn't have cash back then. I had my 2 dogs at the time. And then my sister was living with us for a couple weeks while she moved back to South Florida. And she was living with us and we had her full grown pit mix. He's probably about 80 pounds, 85 pounds. And he was over the house and the 3 of them were there. My flight got delayed on my way home from Arizona in Texas. Got delayed for an hour. I asked why the flight's delayed. Lady said she had no idea, just that it was delayed. Like I was like, is there a mechanical issue? We don't know. We don't know anything. It's just delayed. And usually I ask this all the time when a flight's delayed because I want to know, is there something mechanically wrong with the plane? I want to know. Not that I would probably back out, but at least it's in my head. And so they typically give you the answer. So I get home, nobody's at my house. And I go inside and I'm like, this is really weird. I didn't have my house key, so I had to open my garage. My garage is very, very loud. And so I had to open my garage. I get inside. My dogs aren't barking. None of them. I've been gone all weekend. They go freaking crazy. When like a car drives by, none of them are barking. So I'm like, what the hell? So I'm walking around my house like, hello, anybody here? I go upstairs and all 3 of my dogs are locked in the guest bathroom. Locked. All 3 of them. My dogs would never go in the guest bathroom by themselves. Never. Nonetheless, all 3 at the same time. And they definitely wouldn't close the door behind them. And they definitely wouldn't lock the door. So anyways, that happened. So I call my wife. I'm like, hey, she was at work. I was like, hey, where's, why are the dogs locked in the bathroom? I didn't lock the dogs in the bathroom. Okay, where's my sister? I'm not going to say her name, but where's my sister? She's here. Okay, so this was the only time all weekend that my house was completely empty. And it was completely empty. I got home at like 1 in the morning, and it was completely empty, I think, from like 9 to 1. And my dogs were locked in the bathroom. And it was just weird. So then the next morning, I go to my computer, and I go to set up my computer, and this was when I was still using OBS, before I used StreamYard. For the first time ever since I'd been using OBS, this is 2022. I'd been streaming at this point for 2 years. The first time ever, I had to redo my entire OBS studio. It was completely scrubbed. Like all my transitions, everything was completely scrubbed. Never had to do that before. And so I was like, wow. And then the really crazy part, Liberty Land remembers your computer was all effed up. My web camera was tilted down. Like this is back when I had the one that attaches to the top of your computer screen, and it was aimed down. Lots of weird stuff, man. But then not the weirdest part, but kind of the crazy thing about it all is, you guys know what I was doing in Arizona? I was at that pit event. And the pit event, where it was super secret, they put our phones in Faraday bags. We went out to an undisclosed, we had to meet at a certain place. They took us on a bus, like an hour drive out in the middle of the desert at this small little venue in the middle of nowhere. tin can, like all the roof was like tin, so you couldn't get, I'm assuming it's so you can't get signal in and out. And it was hot as shit in there. And this is where the conic stuff was exposed. And I can remember leaving and I'm like, I don't know what to make of this. This could be such a massive story, but I didn't get enough from this presentation. Then we come to find out that they end up charging the guy. Long story short, I think there's a possibility that I was surveilled or that bugged, whatever the case might be, because I think that they wanted to figure out what was going on with this pit thing, and they didn't know. Either they didn't know, or we were brought to Pitt specifically to target us. Now, I don't so much believe the latter, but the former, absolutely. They knew who was going to this event. They had an idea that something was going to be told. It'd been talked about and pumped up and all this stuff. And so this is very real, this type of thing happening. And so when I hear that woman's story, I can relate to that. Now, granted, I didn't have any fallout from it because I'm a facts guy, right? So there it is. There's my surveillance story. And I just went off on a long tangent. I hope you guys appreciate that. Speaking of rigged elections, President Trump truthed this out on the 27th, which was Sunday. America's elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughing stock all over the world. We're either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. I'm asking all Republicans to fight for the following: Save America Act. All voters must show ID. All voters must show proof of citizenship. No mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travels. And then California. California is going to have a voter ID, proof of citizenship proposal on the ballot. It got its million signatures, and it is going on the ballot. The only problem is, how do you vote for something? How do you vote for accountability in voting? That's the catch-22, right? Our elections are fake. We all think they're fake. We want to make sure that everybody's showing a voter ID and proof of citizenship and all that stuff. Oh, by the way, you have to vote in order to get that on there. But wait, that's the problem. Yeah, but you got to vote to get it on there. But the voting's not real. Yeah, but you got to vote to get it on there. Okay. How about we just follow the law? There's an idea, right? It's a law that you have to be a citizen, right? If we have to show our IDs to a cop when we get pulled over, if we have to show our IDs to get into a bar, into a music venue, into a government building, if we have to show all our IDs for all of that shit, why don't we have to show our IDs for something that explicitly says it's against the law for us to do something without being who we are? But no, you got to vote your way out of it. Okay, sure. Some big court decisions, right? The Texas U.S. Supreme Court upheld Texas's new congressional maps. Then we also got this little piece here. You know what? Let me get this queued up better, because I don't want to play the whole thing because we've hashed this out many, many times. But this, actually, you know what? I am going to play these two in their entirety, because these are the important clips from the Virginia Supreme Court hearing on Monday to decide on the gerrymandering that took place in that ballot proposal. Wildly unconstitutional. Should be overturned. Should be. But here's the arguments that were made.
As noted in our briefing, both Mason's manual of...
And by the way, this right here is the guy that's defending or saying we need to overturn the election. This is the guy that wants to overturn the election. Good guy.
Legislative procedure, which, by the way, the Senate uses to construe its rules, and state court precedent construing similar provisions. They say that limiting the scope in this way, as they said that the scope of special sessions is limited to the expressly identified purposes in those calls. The substantive limitation on the scope of special sessions is not just there, it adheres in the very structure of Article 4, Section 6, most particularly in the dual two-thirds requirement. That two-thirds requirement is important. When an application for a special session is proposed, all members of both houses...
But that doesn't apply if the governor calls it, correct?
I'm sorry.
If the special session is called by the governor, it's a one-person call. He doesn't need the supermajority in the House.
This is really concerning, because this is the judge basically saying, I don't know the facts behind the timeline on this story. Who called the special session? The governor did not call the special session. The legislature did.
The General Assembly wants to do it. They have to do it by supermajority. If the governor calls it, he just calls it.
That's correct. And this is one that was proposed by application of the General Assembly, so we're in the 2/3 line.
But for an argument that the general necessarily ends a special session, their position is that this is the governor's special session, so we didn't need a supermajority to address it.
So this was certainly not the governor's special session. This was the General Assembly special session. They called for it by a joint resolution, HJR 6001. I'm sorry, HJR 4 in April of 2024.
Okay.
They called it. They said it was for budget bills. The governor then responded, as he has to do in the process, and actually calls it. He has to convene it. Then he doesn't have an option. It's not his. It's the General Assembly's. That's why the 2/3.
Okay, so that part was concerning to me, right? These justices don't know. They don't know who called for that, but okay.
Requirement applies. Now, again, the 2/3 requirement is very important. As I was getting to, when an application for a special session is proposed, every single member of each house has the opportunity to approve or disapprove of the issues that are proposed to be taken up, meaning that a minority in either house, right, 1/3 of the body plus one member, can block that proposal. So to allow special sessions to address issues outside of the scope of its application would flout that 2/3 dual house requirement in the special session clause. In other words, H.R. 6007, which was the first supposed passage of the proposed amendment, is invalid because it's not a budget bill. Now, there's a narrower argument on the scope of the special session, and this is the one adopted by the Circuit Court, which, by the way, we did not abandon. It's in our brief from pages 17 and 19. We discussed what the Circuit Court did, and we endorse it. The argument is that the special session exceeded its substantive limits as approved by 2/3 of both houses in HJR 6001. HJR 6001 expressly limited a special session to consider certain things, budget bills and 4 other items which are not relevant here, but it was memorial resolutions and judicial appointments, other appointments that required confirmation of the General Assembly, and internal business. But in any event, it definitely did not include a proposed amendment or anything about redistricting. So HJR 6007, again, exceeds that substantive scope.
What does the historical record tell us about the General Assembly taking on additional legislation beyond the stated purposes originally? I mean, is there a historical track record one way or the other of this being an established pattern, or is this completely unprecedented, or what?
Well, as far as we can tell, it's unprecedented. And petitioners do not cite a single occasion where a special session went outside of its bounds in this manner.
Okay, so again, the point that they're trying to make here, and I had to explain this to Ash, and she got it. She's smarter than me when it comes to the legalese and all that. So, but like when we covered this on Why We Vote on Tuesday, by the way, Why We Vote is now Tuesdays at 9 p.m. But when we covered this on Why We Vote on Tuesday, it hit what they did here. The Democrats, they have a majority in the House and the Senate, the House of Delegates and the Senate. They don't have a supermajority in the House, but they're close. I think they have like 64 to 36. So they're close to a supermajority in the 2/3 majority, but they're not quite there yet. And in the Senate, they have no shot. It's like 17 to 19 or something like that, or 21-19. So it's close. And so what they did is they called a special session to do the budget bill. It took 2/3 of a vote, and the Republicans were like, "Oh yeah, we got to pass budget bills, right? Let's do this special session. Here's what we're gonna do. Let's do it." They get in there, and they're like, "Okay, thank you for calling this special session. Now we're going to talk about some budget bills. Also, since we're here, we're going to talk about a proposed constitutional amendment to gerrymander and redistrict the state." And the Republicans are like, "Whoa! We didn't vote for this." And they're like, yeah, but you're in a special session. We can do what we want. And they're like, no. We didn't vote for this. And they're like, oh, no, look at this really crappily worded part of the bill. You can do what we want. You don't believe me? You don't believe that this is exactly what they wanted to do? I know you guys do, but I'm speaking in general. Watch this argument right here from the quote-unquote bad guy in this. I think this is the appellee or the appellant. So watch this. This is the counter to what that guy just said.
So just a few points in reply to establish that the people did, in fact, validly ratify the proposed amendment last Tuesday. First, I want to reiterate the fact that the challenger's sole argument with respect to the scope of business of the special session at which the General Assembly passed the proposed amendment the first time is that they purportedly exercised a power not found in the text of the Constitution to limit the scope of business in that special session. Now, I just want to point out that House Joint Resolution 428, which is when the General Assembly applied to the governor for that special session, says, and I quote, that the business shall be to consider such matters as are provided for in the procedural resolution adopted to govern the conduct of business coming before the special session. So in the document that was voted on by a 2/3 majority, it refers then to the procedural resolution, which the General Assembly then shaped pursuant to its own procedural rules. So for them to win on that point, it has to be the case that the 2/3 majority power refers not just to the convening, but also textually to a power to limit the scope of business, and they have to stack inference upon inference to say that 2/3 majority request did so.
So the General Assembly is the master of its own operations, and if they wanted to close the door more tightly, it could. If it wants to leave it ajar, it can.
Yes, that's correct, and they can change that by majority vote at any time. And so I think that...
But in other words, if they had a pretty airtight resolution saying we're only going to look at this one thing and absolutely nothing else, then you might agree. And
no,
you would not.
No.
They're telling you, even if we go into there with one agenda, you would agree that we can only address that agenda. No, I would not agree with that. We can do whatever we want. That's what they did. They completely and totally snaked the GOP in Virginia, completely and totally. And so, when people start realizing that kind of stuff, that's when the shit show begins. And I think the court understands that you can't do that. And this was the only way. So they would not have had. So why did they have to go into general session, right? They could have passed the proposal for the amended Constitution in a general session without the majority vote. They could have done it without the majority. But there wasn't another general session that would have given them the time to follow the procedures loosely, because they followed them loosely. They wouldn't have had time if they waited for the next general session, because the next general session would not have given them time to have the intervening House of Delegates election. And Trump would have been beyond the 2026 midterms. So the way that they did it now, yes, they subverted the Constitution, their own Constitution, the procedures. Yes, they violated, the special session and just made up whatever they wanted to do. But they had to do it that way in order to get Trump. That's the whole purpose of this. The whole purpose of this, guys, is get Trump. The whole purpose. And they literally bent the Constitution and temporarily amended it to give Democrats 90% representation. Crazy. And then put on the ballot, restore fairness. We talked about that last week already. Holly Kessler put this out on X. Absolutely shocking. Look at this ballot here in Fulton County. This is the Democrat primary ballot. Guys, this is a real thing. This is not fake. Now, they do these where the party can ask questions of its constituents, because remember, the primaries, they're administered by the state and the county, but they're ultimately the party that runs it. So look at these questions, man. Is it ethical for political candidates who have used their public offices to enrich themselves and their families, or have had nearly $1 billion of business dealings with the state of Georgia to hold statewide office? Okay, that one's pretty bad, but not the worst. Did you know that Georgia Republicans want to defund police and fire departments across all 15 cities through their proposal of eliminating property taxes, which fund municipal services? Okay, again, not the worst. Here's where it gets bad. On January 28th, 2026, the FBI raided the Fulton County Elections Office and took your personal data. Do you think they should have your personal voter data? Let that sit in. The FBI obtained a lawful search warrant through a magistrate judge following all laws governing the Fourth Amendment in the United States, which, by the way, the government does not have protections under the Fourth Amendment. We do from the government. The government does not from us and from the government. And then to steal your personal voter data. All the data that the FBI obtained is public record. You might have to pay for it if you want voter rolls and all that. The parties get them. The Democrat Party has all your voter data, all the personal voter data. The same entity that's asking about the FBI having this data already has it. The FBI is investigating a crime. The Democrat Party is trying to suck money out of you. And then this is the worst one. Are you aware a sitting Republican Fulton County Board of Commissioners served as a witness alongside other 2020 election conspiracy theorists on the affidavit the FBI used to steal your private election information? That's a shot specifically at Bridget Thorne. And Bridget Thorne is a hero. She was elected to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners in 2022 because she blew the whistle on election fraud and what took place in the 2020 election. She was a poll manager for 9 years. She's a Georgia Tech graduate. It's not an easy school to get into. It's a very prestigious school, Georgia Tech. She's a software engineer, 9-year veteran poll manager, 27-year Fulton County resident. And they put that on a ballot. And not only do they put that on a ballot, they put it on a ballot with absolutely atrociously misleading language. The FBI used to steal your private election information. The state has that information. The county has that information. The Democrat and Republican parties have that information. The FBI obtained a lawful search warrant to get that information lawfully. And not only do they defame a sitting Fulton County Board of Commissioner member, duly elected by the people of Fulton County, but then they use words like steal your private election information, and they send this out to all of their Democrat voters. Now, why is this one so bad? Because this goes out on every mail-in ballot, primary ballot. So every voter that requests one in Fulton County, every voter that goes in and votes. And guess what? Not every single voter knows what's going on with the Fulton County election data, with the FBI. They don't know all these stories, at least not the way that my audience does, because you guys are intelligent people. You guys are truth seekers. And this has been one of my passions for the last 6 years, is covering elections, but very specifically Georgia. And so this is propagandizing people through a ballot. This is weaponizing a ballot and doing it to defame a board of commissioners. I believe we're going to see a lawsuit over that question. I believe we'll see a lawsuit over that question. Shame on you. And to be totally fair here, the GOP does it too, just not that bad. That is awful. That is awful. One person, one vote. What does this vote accomplish? Why on a ballot? It's a litmus test, man. It's a litmus test. It's a propaganda question disguised as a litmus test. We're just trying to poll our people to see if they're aware of this. Spotzel says the party questions here on the Republican ballot weren't that bad, but close. Yeah, I looked. That's the first thing I did, Spotzel, and I posted when I wrote an article on the Gateway Pundit about this. I posted the Republican ballot because I want people to see that the GOP does it too, just not nearly as bad. Liberty Lion, Asawa Vana. All shows are why we vote now. Amen. Amen. All right. This was the biggest story of the week, in my opinion. Louisiana versus Calais. Barack Obama, today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts. Again, I'll reiterate this again. It is to gerrymander legislative districts. Legislative districts have been gerrymandered under the Voting Rights Act Section 2, requiring this. This is gerrymandering it. CNN freaking out big time over this. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Spirit Airlines shut down overnight. Did you see this? I went to go write an article for Gateway. Somebody already had it up. Spirit Airlines shut down overnight. Just overnight, canceled all their upcoming flights, everything. Just gone. Poof. No more yellow planes. No more yellow planes. No more fights in the terminals. Fort Lauderdale's a Spirit hub. And I'll tell you, man, like, you don't even want to walk to that terminal. You don't even want to walk to that terminal, man. It's not a safe place. Spirit Airlines is the people of Walmart of the airlines. You ever seen that? Late night Walmart people? Yeah. All right. CNN, Louisiana delays U.S. House primaries. Let's go. Delays U.S. House primaries after Supreme Court ruling, but lets other races go forward. Early voting was scheduled to begin Saturday, and overseas ballots had already gone out. The primaries for the races will still move forward. House races will remain on the May 16th ballot, but no votes cast in those races will count, said Nancy Landry in a statement. She's the Secretary of State. Is she related to Jeff Landry? Are they husband and wife or brother and sister or related in any form or fashion? Somebody in the chat, let me know that. Representative Cleo Fields, whose district is at the center of the Supreme Court redistricting decision, said that Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry had told him he anticipated an executive order to suspend the House election and call for a new one. Fields expects a court challenge to the move. Quote, people have already voted, Fields said. Early ballots have been submitted. It's not true. It's not true. The voting starts today. Started today. They suspended the election before then, but there were some Uokava ballots that had already gone out, so there, could be some truth to it there. Again, I want to go back to, oh man, what part was it here?
So two answers to that, Your Honor. The first textual and the second structural. The textual answer is that we have other provisions of the Constitution that answer directly this point. So Article 7.
I got to find the right point, but I want you to...
Section 4 says regular elections for such... and structural point that the election takes place on a... And in a...
That literally is...
The way the federal... A contrary interpretation...
That constitutional provision should be interpreted. The people who, that when they went and voted actively...
This is, Your Honor, again, going back to the text...
Section 1 there isn't.
Whole harmonious. And then again, in Article 0, might be upset or that someone accepts by taking in debt item. But moving on to
okay, here it is. Okay, so again, sorry, I had to get this queued up. I should have had it prepared. I apologize. I screwed up. So Cleo Fields, the representative who is about to be ungerrymandered out of his district, okay, says that people have already voted. Early ballots have been submitted. You can't cancel the election. It's already begun. It's already begun. So let's go back to the Virginia arguments from Monday.
Section 4, it is the word election. But moving on to your other concern, I understand. I understand the concern that someone who cast their ballot before something happened might be upset or regret that. And that is a problem that is endemic to early voting. That is a problem that someone accepts by taking advantage of the option of voting early. It's worth pointing out that every single voter in the Commonwealth has the option to cast their ballot on Election Day. The statutes, which exist all over the country as well and are interpreted in exactly the same manner, provide for the opportunity to participate in the election early. That's why it's called early voting. And indeed, Black's Law Dictionary defines early voting.
Okay, so so Cleo Fields is saying people have already voted, so you can't cancel the election. But this guy's arguing that the election is only after all votes are cast and they begin to count the votes. That's the actual election. But then he says right here they can't participate. I just caught this. I literally just caught this. He says people who vote early to participate in the election. Well, if you're participating in the election, it's ongoing.
As early manner, provide for the opportunity to participate in the election.
It provides the opportunity to participate in the election. I hope the justices pick up on his argument there, because he's arguing that Election Day, again, this is going back to the Virginia thing, where they have to have the House of Delegates proposes an amendment, passes it, then they have to put it out to, or there has to be an election, a whole general election of the House of Delegates. A new House of Delegates is seated, and then that House of Delegates, the new delegation, they have to vote on it and pass it, and then it goes, if they pass it, then it goes to the people on the ballot. And the reason for that, and I believe this is the reason that's articulated very well in the case, is people have the opportunity to vote people out if they voted for this proposal. You know, they might not have known it. The proposal wasn't made until late October 30th, I think. People had already been voting for like 40 days before that. Over 1 million ballots had already been cast. And then they propose the amendment, they pass it, and then they're like, oh, we did it 3 days before the election. That's the election. Now the next House, they get to vote on it. That's not how it works. And their argument is, well, the election doesn't start until election day and after all the votes are counted. But he just says right there, casting your early vote, participate in an election. That means the election's ongoing. You participate in the election. But also back to Cleo Fields and CNN, where he's saying you can't cancel this. People have already voted. This guy's arguing that if you vote early, you are acknowledging that something could happen that could nullify your vote, that could affect your vote. You might want to change your vote, but you can't do that because you exercised the option to vote early. You didn't have to. You could have voted in person. That's bonkers, man. That is That is counterintuitive to what they have been arguing this whole entire time, Democrats. That is so counter to all of that. Now, I just want to point this out. This is the map that is up for debate in Louisiana versus Calais. This is what sparked it all, okay? This congressional map started up here in Shreveport and went all the way down. Look how narrow it is right there. That's probably like, I bet you if I zoom in on a geo, like a satellite image of that, there's probably not even any houses in there. Comes all the way down here. Jogs up a little bit, probably a good city of Democrats up here that they got to grab. Comes down here, narrows out here. You don't want to get any of these Republicans in there because that will fuck up the numbers. Comes down here, goes through Baton Rouge, and then ends all the way up in New Orleans. So they have one district in Louisiana that they drew to grab all three of the biggest cities in Louisiana: Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. Narlands, if you're from New Orleans. Narlands. How is that not fucking gerrymandering? How is that not gerrymandering? You can't make compact districts, right? That's what our founders intended, compact districts. Not to draw squiggly lines all over the place and expand out in different directions in order to get the people that you want. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, somebody in this person here, Micah F. Irfan, is the one that posted that. Says here he's a UVA Law 28. He graduated. Or no, he's in school still. Right? 28. He hasn't graduated yet. You might want to pay attention in law school. He says down here, he responded to me. He said, the district was drawn by Republicans to preserve incumbents. You can draw a much cleaner map without violating the VRA. No, it was drawn because of the VRA. It was drawn and then challenged because of the VRA. And they said that you cannot draw these maps based on race. And so now, as Jeff Landry, where is it? As Jeff Landry says right here, it's unconstitutional. He says, Jeff Landry says, by the court's order, however, that stay on the map automatically terminated with yesterday's decision. Accordingly, the state is currently enjoined from carrying out congressional elections under the current map. This is that's the strongest argument right there. If they allow the election to go on, they are doing so on a map that has been deemed unconstitutional. The map has been deemed illegal by the Supreme Court. So if Louisiana does carry out their election without redrawing the map, they have a false electorate. They have a fake electorate. It is, I mean, you guys know where I stand on that. But in terms of that map, it's fake. It's not a lawful map. Now, President Trump put this out on on Truth on the 30th. I had a very good conversation with Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee this morning, wherein he stated that he would work hard to correct the unconstitutional flaw in the congressional maps of the great state of Tennessee. Likewise, all of the other political representatives of Tennessee have promised to do so. This should give us one extra seat and help save our country from the radical left Democrats and their country-destroying policies of high tax, open borders, transgender mutilization, defunding the police, ICE, and Border Patrol, no voter ID, soft on crime, and so much more. Thank you, Governor Lee. Push hard. I'm with him, 100%. If your election had not started at the time that the Supreme Court put that order down, you cannot carry on with your election. You can't carry on with it. He needs to. The states that have already started their election, I can see the argument that the election has already begun and it began before the ruling. I could see the argument both ways on that, and I don't know if that's one that they'll take that challenge, but I don't think they need to. Florida is going to get 4 seats. Louisiana is going to pick up 1. Mississippi is going to pick up 1. Tennessee could pick up, I think, 2. Could be a big 2026 midterm for the GOP, which traditionally they fail. The incumbent party, the incumbent president loses if he gains the House in his general election. He loses it at the midterm. Trump's got a good shot now at keeping it. I mean, again, elections are totally fake, but it's much more difficult to fake an election when you have a pretty good idea of how the constituency is supposed to vote. And by supposed to vote, I mean red districts, blue districts, and all that. Again, and I can't say this enough. I can't say this enough. You have to be involved in your primaries. And you do this with the precinct strategy, getting involved as a committee chairperson, getting involved in your local committees. I can't stress that enough. Because now, as these maps are being ungerrymandered and we're starting to see these crazy blue districts becoming not blue districts at all, they're going to start focusing. The establishment GOP is going to turn their focus on ensuring that their qualified, their selected candidate gets on the ballot. And then they move. Guys, I know this is maybe an unpopular opinion, but a heavy GOP House is not always a good thing. We can get a lot of crazy foreign policy stuff, FISA stuff, spending on military industrial complex, pharmaceutical industrial complex. We can get a lot of crazy spending with an all GOP House. So again, I encourage you guys to please get involved in your local as much as you're involved in the other stuff. Okay. I think we can, we're getting pretty close to wrapping up, I think. President Trump, this was hilarious. So President Trump welcomed the king and queen to the White House this week, or late this week. Check this out. This was their arrival. All right. Love that picture right there. President Trump and Melania looking good, tall, strong, beautiful. And then that guy. Not a fan. President Trump put this out, though. I thought this was hilarious. Wow, that's nice. I've always wanted to live in Buckingham Palace. I'll talk to the king and queen about this in a few minutes. Revealed how the Daily Mail traced Trump's family tree and found out he's the king's cousin. Interesting. Trump is royalty. Let's make him kingmaker. I would be okay with, the monarchy is a really misunderstood thing historically. And that's because we've, as Americans, we've widely pushed back against a monarchy, and rightfully so. Our constitutional republic is one of the most beautiful forms of government you could ever imagine. The executive has grown way too strong lately. Way too strong. I agree with that 100%. And a monarchy, you think about a monarchy and they still have, a court that advises them. They still have a parliament. They still have a Senate. that effectuates everything. Now the king has a much more strong say, so to speak, and I like our constitutional republic much better. But I'll call him King Trump for a little while. So I thought that was awesome. And then this post right here: kids 100 years from now are never going to believe that Trump was a real person. Absolutely loved that. Did you guys see the boop that me and Chris got from Trump? Let me see if I could pull this up real quick. Hold on. We got a little boop. So last week we got the boop on Why We Vote. Ash was talking about the boomerang to open the show. She was talking about the boomerang and how it's coming back around. And then Scavino goes that night and posts the boomerang image. Well, we got this boop. Yesterday. Me and Chris Paul on Badlands Daily. Make sure you check the schedule, but they're going to be doing it those 2 months. So you will get to see, if you go to Rushmore, you will get to see the unveiling of Trump. No, I mean the 250th celebration.
Man, if that happened, that would be so funny.
Imagine that on July 4th, they announced President Trump going to be up there. There's a couple things that would have to happen before then, but yeah. All right, let's jump into.
Things can totally happen, man. We are in a very rapidly accelerating narrative period right now. And
okay, so that was me and Chris talking. We were talking about Gart Deadwood, which is coming up in June, the end of June. It's going to be fantastic. Love Gart Deadwood. Deadwood is the best Gart. Vegas is up there, but Gart and Vegas is going to be our second one that we go to. No, Cocoa Beach we went to twice. Cocoa Beach has gone twice. Vegas is going to be twice, and I think that's it so far, besides Deadwood, that we've had 2. But anyways, President Trump truthed this out last night. Right there. That's a boop. That's a boop. That is definitely a boop. Love it, man. Love it. I mean, hey, it could happen. I mean, there definitely could be. There could be somebody from the Trump administration watching Badlands. I'm just throwing that out there. It is a very real possibility. I do have a couple more stories to get to. I forgot. There's a few more, but I do want to hit another sponsor. So let's go ahead and hit one more sponsor. This will be our final sponsor of the show. All right, guys, quick question. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, and now it is changing how money works. Crypto, it started as a niche, but now it's going mainstream. Faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. This isn't hype. It's just where things are going. And getting started today is easier than you think, and that's where Rumble Wallet comes in. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, you can hold dollar-backed stable coins, you can even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one place. Setup is simple. It connects with MoonPay. You can use your debit card, credit card, or bank account and be up and running in minutes. Start small, $10, $50, $100. It's not about the amount. It's about getting in early and understanding what's coming next. And once you're set up, you can even tip your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet. You can tap buy and boom, you're in the game. Take control of your money and get started with Rumble Wallet today. All right. Thank you to Rumble Wallet. Appreciate that. Let me clean up my back, let me clean up my show, my links here, my windows. What am I trying to say here? Speak. I want to make, we got to talk about the Rosa DeLauro. I know we've talked about it twice on Badlands, but this is my channel, a little bit different. So we gotta definitely talk about this. What's everybody fighting about in the chat? Greetings from Naples. I will go back to the start. If you go back to the start, guys, I leave this running for like another hour or two after the show, because if I close the room, the chat goes away and it stops you. So I'm going to leave it open for like another hour or two after the show. So you guys can stay and hang out in the chat. If you're watching on delay, you won't hear this until probably an hour later, but you get it. So, clean up your back end, Brian. Clean up. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Hey, yo, we're not gonna, guys, you're not gonna mute this guy. Hold up. Who muted him? I know you guys don't like what this guy's saying. I saw it briefly in the chat. Hold on, we got to unmute this guy. I'm not going to mute guys over them disagreeing and all that stuff. That's fine. He's not spamming and he's not being belligerently racist. Sorry guys, I gotta unmute this guy. I'm not going to censor guys if they don't like something, you know. All right, he should be back now. I know you guys think you're doing good, and that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate it. But that if you guys want to engage with it, just ignore it. That's all. Just ignore it. I see the comments. He's welcome to his opinion on all that stuff. It's fine. But I'm not going to censor over that. Spamming or like you got to drop an N-bomb hard ER in my chat to get banned for that. So yeah, let's just let it go. I know, just ignore it. If you want to ignore it, you can address it if you want. You guys, hey, friction is good, right? Friction is good. I love friction. So I apologize. Should be unmuted now, although he might have just raged and left. Oh man, Rumble Rant from Jesus is 1 for the 17 plus reasons. I love to hear your takes on Saturdays. Thanks, CanCon. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Yeah, Rumble Rants are excellent, man. Rumble Rants are a great way to... Are you guys like spamming the American flag now to try and get me to ban you? The one thing you probably can spam in my chat that I'm not going to ban you for is the American flag, guys. Like Marine Corps flag would be a close number 2. But there you go. There you go. And I know Apocryphal World Records is in the chat all the time. So I know that, and so is Toker Joe. So I know you guys are just being belligerent, and that's okay. I like belligerence. Belligerence is good. Jackie, you kind of have like you have a pass. You bought one of the passes. I mean, you're with Cam, who's the whitest black person that I know, but still, just don't drop the hard ER, man. Not a big fan of that. Although we do have that one account in here with the name that's just like epic. Okay, let's get back to the show. Rosa DeLauro, Lee Zeldin, round 1, fight.
The budget proposal reads like a climate change denier's manifesto. When climate change is flooding our streets, poisoning our air, driving up healthcare and disaster costs, how can the EPA justify abandoning that duty to protect Americans to appease polluters under the false flag of economic growth?
Following the law, Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, where does it say anything about fighting global climate change?
Let me just tell you guys, this hearing right here, House Appropriations, they're the ones that give funding to the executive, to the bureaucracy. Donald Trump, in his 2027 budget, he cut the EPA funding from $8.8 billion down to $4.2 billion. He cut it by more than half. I think it's 52%. And the Democrats are freaking the fuck out over this. Freaking out over this, especially DeLauro. Now, when you go back and you look at some of the stuff that Doge uncovered early on in this administration, we saw a lot from Zeldin about billions of dollars in grants that were going out to these quote-unquote green companies. One of them, Stacey Abrams, Aligned. She's involved in the company. And it went from like $500 to over $1 billion in their bank. It's money laundering. It's money laundering. And Doge caught it. And Trump is fixing it. And DeLauro is freaking the fuck out about it.
Loper Bright, Supreme Court case. You familiar with it?
No, I maybe others are. I'm not, but let me ask.
But that's really important. As a member of Congress, Loper Bright says that we, as an agency, don't have the authority to get creative. If Section 202 of the Clean Air Act,
no, but you don't have. Excuse me. You do not have the right to say climate change does not exist. That it's a hoax, and that's where this administration is coming
You're upset that you don't know what Loper Bright is. Do you know what the major policies doctrine is?
I'm upset because
you know what the major policies doctrine is.
Let me just.
You're a member of Congress. You should know.
Well, you have moved from someone who defended the environment to all of a sudden
Being very defensive about not knowing the two biggest landmark Supreme Court cases of the last year with regards to your question.
You are very defensive about changing your policy and your positions with regard to the environment.
Okay.
Now, you just tell
Do you want me to tell you what the two biggest Supreme Court cases are of the last few years?
This is what I want you
Michigan
to tell
versus
me.
EPA.
Whoa.
West Virginia versus EPA.
You know, you're here because you need money from us. So halt for the second and wait for the questions and answer the questions.
Well, I answer. He's actually here because he wants less money from you. And you're like, no, we need to give you more of the taxpayer money. I'm fighting for $4 billion extra to go to the EPA. Tell that to your constituents back in Connecticut. That you're fighting to spend $4 billion that they've deemed does not need to be spent while we're $40 trillion in debt.
Your question,
No, you
and you
didn't.
didn't like my answer because you
did
don't
not
know what
answer the
Loper Bright is,
question.
because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is,
Chairman,
because you're asking me about Section 202 of the Clean Air Act, and you don't read it. You don't know what it says.
Listen, and what you want to do is to deny.
No, I actually read the law. I do my homework.
Really?
You're just somebody who likes to have the microphone on. You know what I have to do? I read the law.
No,
I read the
Chairman,
Supreme Court cases.
To this, and I would say
No,
that,
what you should do for your constituents is actually read statute.
Budget is at real risk.
This budget is at real risk. Good.
Oh, you care about science? Now you're threatening to defund it?
Oh my God! No, you don't fund
because
science.
you don't know what Loper Bright is.
climate
Because you don't know what the major policies doctrine is. Your message to our folks at the EPA is that you want to
I don't
defund
have
us.
to listen to this BS.
This is so funny.
You think I made up these cases?
Yeah, I think you have made up a whole lot of
I made up Loper Bright. I made up West Virginia versus EPA. I made up Michigan versus EPA.
Woe is right. What are you doing? Why are you helping polluters?
We're not going to get any very far by talking on.
This is one of the greatest exposés right here in our Congress. This is one of the greatest segments in the last probably decade in Congress, right there. That exposure. A congresswoman bitching about science. You don't trust the science. You're not a climate change hoax acceptor. You don't accept that. That is one of the greatest clips right there. Ma'am, it's not that I do or I don't accept it. It's that Loper Bright, the Supreme Court in Loper Bright overturned Chevron. West Virginia v. EPA said that we don't have the authority to regulate the pollution mechanisms of coal plants. We don't have the right to regulate that. It's not in the law. We are not allowed to contextualize the law as we see fit. We are not allowed to interpret the law as we seem fit. And she doesn't even know what those cases held. They are fundamental cases that limit the bureaucracy, and she has no idea. It's one of the few times Congress has given power back. Or at least, well, maybe so I could see how Congress doesn't like this because they delegated that power to the bureaucratic state so they don't have to do work anymore. We don't have to get in there and actually pass law. We can just let the bureaucracies make up law and it's accepted. They do it under the guise of regulation, right? Regulations aren't law, but they're the interpretation of a bureaucratic institute of how the law is actually meant to be applied. And we see this, the worst one for us is the ATF. They make up laws all the time. And there was just a rescinding of those laws. So, and we'll cover that here in just a second. But this is a fantastic expose right here, how fundamentally retarded Congress is, especially DeLauro. Everybody else in that room is kind of looking at her like, you don't belong here. Like, she is the anomaly on that panel. Like, if you pull this panel back up, you have a bunch of people that look relatively serious here. Right? You've got a bunch of people that look relatively serious sitting around the table. And then you have the blue-haired Jane's Addiction frontman sitting over there looking like a lunatic, like a crazy person. Like, she looks like a crazy person. 83 years old, and has no idea how she's supposed to do her job. What a fantastic expose right there. All right. Man, there were some more stories. But let's see. I guess this one's worth covering here. So this story here, the Kaukauna Area School District, I think this is in Wisconsin. Wisconsin? Where is this? Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah. So they're letting all their students go out for this walk. They gave them a day off of school in Wisconsin for this protest that's supposed to take place, the Madison Teachers Union. On Friday, May 1st, we will join Voces de la Frontera and a broad coalition of labor and community partners in a powerful act of solidarity to take action on a day without immigrants. Starting at noon at the State Street Library Mall, blah, blah, blah. No school, no work, and no shopping. By choosing to march with our students and community instead of going to work, the members of MTI are aligning with Voces de la Fronteras demands and our immigrant community while calling attention to the state's failure to live up to its obligations to Wisconsin's public school students. They're giving them a day off of school to go out and protest. And then this is exactly what they do with this. When they get this, they tout it as if to say, look how popular we are. This is not Wisconsin, but watch. So that goes on for a minute. That's in North Carolina, guys. That's in North Carolina. This post was put out by Matt Van Swol, who says, just so we are all clear on what happened today, education and school administrators single-handedly canceled school for 700,000 North Carolina students, including my son, to wave signs around in the street instead. The signs vary from fuck ICE, defeat Trump's agenda, Trump is a Nazi, ICE out, protect trans kids, refuse fascism, stop bombing schools. Don't tell me this was about kids. It never was. This was adults and using 700,000 children, including mine, as political leverage against a president they don't like. That's despicable. And I will remind you guys, where's my post on it? Right here. North Carolina has 2 Republican senators, a Republican supermajority up until the last election. They still have a very strong majority, but not a supermajority. But yeah, elections are totally real. They have a Democrat governor, they have a Democrat president of the state Senate, and they have a Democrat attorney general, and they have a Democrat secretary of state in North Carolina. They're not brazen enough to take the Senate because there will be a challenge of that at the federal level, but they take all the state seats that are most important, the executive state seats, secretary of state, governor, and attorney general, and then they own the state. And then you slowly begin to make that state blue. Elections are fake. Elections are fake. Tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. My audience is pretty privy to it. But elections are not real. And now with the defunding of USAID, with the defunding of National Endowment, with the defunding of a lot of these NGOs, with the expose of Act Blue, which would launder our taxpayer money back into the United States and disperse it among these NGOs that would then go out there and fund these entities like the No Kings protest, like SPLC, I'm sure. We'll find that out, I'm sure. The ACLU, I'm sure we'll find that out in due time. But they're significantly impacted right now from their funding mechanisms. And so this is smart. It's also unethical, immoral, and probably illegal. So in order to manufacture the idea that they have a strong base behind them, they take kids and they say, hey, we're going to give you the day off of school, but you got to go out and protest. They probably, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that these signs that they're holding were made in class at the behest of their teachers. Marxist teachers' unions. And so this is their new way of showing. This is a color revolution, guys. This is page 1 in the Color Revolution book. The Maidan Revolution was students in Ukraine in 2014, 2015. The Maidan, the Orange Revolution, these are all student-led organizations, student-led protests. And this is what they do. They incentivize these students. They're manipulative. They're malleable. They're jello. They're clay that can be molded whatever you want them to be. And they're weaponizing them. And now that they have no funding in the United States for the NGOs to pay people, to pay community organizers and other people to get these folks out there, they're using students because they're desperate. They're fucking desperate. We're winning, guys. This is a victory. But at the same time, you got to point out that it's all fake. It's all fake. The elections, the manufactured, consensus on this, it's all fake. Okay. Let's get into this clip here. Minnesota, Somali fraud. Raids happening. FBI, let's go.
Well, federal agents once again descending on the Twin Cities, part of what they're calling a court-ordered investigation into fraud. The Justice Department saying that the FBI is carrying out activity across St. Paul and Minneapolis, signaling a refocused effort to target COVID-era fraud schemes. ABC affiliate KTSP capturing video today of those federal agents on the ground as a law enforcement source is telling ABC News 22 that ABC News that 22 federal search warrants have been executed so far. These raids come more than 2 months after the Trump administration ceased Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, and the immigration crackdown, as you may remember, led to thousands of arrests, violent protests, and the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens. Let's bring in our Alex Mallon, who's been tracking this. So what more do we know about these raids and why they're happening now, Alex?
Yeah, well, we know that the agents from the FBI and HSI, the Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Investigations Division, are taking part in a lot of these raids. We understand it's at least 22 locations, some of which include daycare centers. We've seen this, been a very big focus of this administration. They created an entire division now in the Justice Department with an Assistant Attorney General named Colin McDonald, who was confirmed by the Senate recently, and has recently assumed this role of targeting what they say is rampant fraud, especially targeting Minneapolis, where President Trump has obviously singled out the Somali community there and said that they are responsible for a large part of this COVID fraud. Essentially, basically, the idea is they are using these daycare centers, claiming that people are going there, collecting these grants that were intended to prop up businesses during the COVID pandemic, and not actually having personnel or children there that they are serving. That's what they're trying to identify and prosecute. And we have actually heard from Governor Tim Walz's office. They spoke to KTSP earlier today. A spokesperson said that they actually were part of these raids. The Minnesota AG's office also says they were active participants in at least 5 of the warrants that are being executed today, Kira.
I mean, that's not entirely true, according to reporting. So Governor Walz said today's raids by state and federal law enforcement happened because our state agencies caught irregular behavior and reported it. That's how the system's supposed to work, and our agency will keep at it as long as there are fraudsters around to put that behind bars. Kash Patel was like, what? Come again? This FBI and DOJ, with our DHS partners, drafted and executed every search warrant today. But go ahead and take credit for our work while we smoke out the fraud plaguing Minnesota under your governorship. Governor Tim Walz has been incredibly inadequate in this fraud thing. We've heard whistleblowers being retaliated against, all sorts of shit. He's done nothing. It's all smoke and mirrors from Governor Walz. So kudos to Kash Patel for calling that out. The other big thing that we had this week was the TPS investigations, or the TPS, court hearing for Haitians and Syrians. And they're arguing that President Trump is removing Haitians and Syrians' TPS status because of racism, apparently, because they're black. Here's the key moment with Pip. That's what I call this guy, Jeffrey Pipoli, Pip. This was the key discussion between him and Justice Alito regarding the TPS removal.
Isn't it the case that TPS was terminated for quite a list of countries? I can't seem to find the particular page of the transcript where the district court goes through them all. And yes, none of those is a Nordic country. And I don't like dividing up the people of the world arbitrarily into 3 racial groups. But you say they're all non-white, and that's the distinguishing characteristic.
That is the distinguishing characteristic that the district court held. But I would emphasize, Justice Alito, that
but do you think that if you put Syrians, Turks, Greeks, and other people who live around the Mediterranean in a lineup, do you think you could say those people are that all of them, are they all non-white?
I understand that Syrians, I think, may be classified as white for purposes of the State Department, or for under certain government, certain government programs. But again, I think race is, I think, you'd have to poll the public to know what they think the race of a Syrian is. I certainly think they're not white.
Poll the public.
Well,
do they think Syrians are white?
I wouldn't think that most would, Justin.
I thought that was science. Race is science. Now we're polling people.
Alito?
Really?
I really don't.
How about Turks?
I honestly haven't considered what racial component I would sort Turks into.
How about Greeks?
I don't know the answer to that either.
How about Southern Italians?
Well, certainly 120 years ago, when we had our last wave of European immigration, Southern Italians were not considered white. So I think our concept of these things evolves over time.
How about Spaniards?
I think same answer. About 120 years ago, I don't think they were considered white.
You have a really large...
By the way, I'm Southern Italian, so I guess I'm not white.
You have a really broad definition of who's white and who's not white. As I said, I don't like dividing the people of the world into these groups.
I understand. I would say that even under this court's rationality jurisprudence, if you look at cases like Moreno, it is not necessary for us to get strict scrutiny to win here, because irrespective of how you do the classification at issue here, under those courts, under those decisions, under those precedents, bare dislike of an unpopular group is a sufficient basis to find that rational basis is not even satisfied.
Yeah, but here's the problem, buddy. Here is the problem. None of this is subject to judicial review. So here's the TPS statute, and if you come all the way down here, there it is, number 5. There's no judicial review of any determination of the Attorney General with respect to the designation or termination or extension of a designation of a foreign state under this subsection. I don't even know why this is taking place. The law is clear. There's no judicial review over this. It doesn't matter if he does it because he hates black people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he hates Haiti and thinks it's a shithole country, which they invoke in this. Ketanji Brown Jackson says that he called it a shithole country. No, that's speculation. That was rumor. That is not proven. There's one Democratic aide that said, yeah, this happened. And a couple other Democratic aides that are like, yeah, we heard it. And everybody else is like, no, he never said that. And even if he did say that, it's true. Haiti's a shithole. Anybody want to go to Haiti for vacation? Anybody? No? Why? Because it's a shithole. It is. Maybe if we stopped hoarding all their people for slave labor throughout the United States and sent them back to Haiti, maybe they could start to change that country a little bit. They brag about, oh, we've got Haitians that are doctors and lawyers and engineers and all these other great things. Okay, send them back. We educated them. We gave them a great education, probably a little bit of coin in their bank to go and live a good life. Send them back to Haiti and let them start to rebuild that country. It's been 16 years since the earthquake. 16 years. And they've been here the whole time. Send them back. Let them rebuild it. All right. This will probably be the last story of the day. Let's see. Is there anything else? Yeah, well, this will be the last story, and then I got a couple clips of President Trump that I thought were pretty good. Ammo Land. Speaking of the DeLauro, the Loper Bright decision, the overturning of Chevron deference, the Administrative Procedures Act, ATF rolls back Biden-era gun rules in major reform package. And jump down here, and the best one is, oh, it took away my highlights. Hold on. Is the pistol brace, which is, oh, right there. The most obvious win for gun owners is ATF's proposal to formally remove the Biden-era pistol brace rule. ATF is proposing to rescind the 2023 stabilizing brace regulatory changes after multiple federal courts found the rule violated the Administrative Procedures Act and after the rule was enjoined, stayed, or vacated across numerous jurisdictions. So if you went out and you bought an AR-15 that has a pistol brace on it, because it's a short barrel, it's less than 15 inches or 16 inches, you will now be able to own that. And that's, again, bonkers to me that the Bruin decision didn't shoot that down a long time ago. a long time ago. When Bruen first passed, what was it, 2022? So it's been 4 years and we still haven't. Bruen has been wildly disappointing. The Bruen case has been wildly disappointing. And Bruen said that we're supposed to look at gun laws and gun rules and regulations in the context of our founding fathers and the early days of our country. And yet, not much has been overturned as a result of Bruen. I mean, they owned warships, cannons on warships privately during Bruen, during our founding. And Bruen should bring that back. If you want to own an aircraft destroyer and you've got $32 billion to do so, or however much it costs, go for it. Go for it. All right. President Trump put this out on Truth, thought this was hilarious. Anybody running for president or vice president should be forced to take a cognitive exam prior to entering the race. By doing so, we wouldn't be surprised at people like Barack Hussein Obama or Sleepy Joe Biden getting quote unquote elected. Our country would be a much better place. I took the exam 3 times during my 3 terms as president, but wait, you've only served 2. Interesting. And aced it all 3 times, an achievement that even on a single exam, according to the doctors, has rarely been done before. President Donald J. Trump. Yeah, it's been rarely done because we don't have cognitive exams for presidents. Joe Biden would have failed his, no question in my mind. Barack Obama, let's give him constitutional questions. Let's make them take the same exam that you have to take to get citizenship, since he never did that. Let's make them take the same exam. But the 3 terms, that's very, very interesting, especially considering the comments he made in the Oval this week.
I'm up good in Iowa. We're up good everywhere. I'm up good in Iowa. We're up good everywhere. Unfortunately, I'm not running except we're up and everywhere, but I'm not running, Peter, unless you say I can.
Unless you say I can, Peter Ducey. Unless you say I can, I'm not running. I'm not running. Kind of reminded me of this speech back in February 2026.
In here 1 year. Think of it. 1 year, a little bit more than 1 year now. Time flies. Time flies. Maybe we do one more term. Should we do one more term? Do one more term. One more. Well, we're entitled to it because they cheated like hell in the second, right? So we
Love it.
would actually be entitled to it. But think of it.
Yep, I think you should be. I think our amendment, 22nd Amendment, should apply to consecutive terms. And I think if there's a gap in between there, you should be allowed to run another term. That's what our governors can do across the country. If they have term limits, they have to take a term off, and then they can run again. DeSantis is done this year, 2026. He's done until 2030. Then he can run again for governor of Florida. I'm okay with it. I am okay with it. All right. I think that's it. Let me jump in the chat, see if there's any rants or anything that I missed. I don't believe there are. My mods, no, I mean, guys, don't get timid because I gave you a little stern talking to about the one muting. We let the viral guy go with posting links. Let's see what we got here. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in, by the way. Let me pull this up. I want to show you guys. Where's the notification bell? Oh, might not have it because it's oh, there it is. So if you guys look at my channel, you see on the left, right to the side of where it says CanCon, if you click on that, you can turn on the bell and you can get instant notifications when I go live, because I'll be going live a lot more, right? I go live randomly. I think I did 3 random shows this week. And so I go live randomly. So Saturday's show is going to be is pretty definitive. Friday's night, the new date night, is going to be pretty definitive. But if you want to see when I go live, just click that little bell and click the instant, and it will alert you whenever I go live. So hit that up, and then let's see who I'm going to raid you guys over to. That is it. You guys can check out my sponsors if you go to mypillow.com. Promo code CanCon over at mypillow.com. Check that out. I will give you guys the option of who we're going to raid you to. Let's see. Who do we got here that looks interesting? Nobody's very interesting that's live right now. That's the only bad thing. Oh, Badlands is live. We'll send you over to Badlands because we're live.
This guy got.
Trump is speaking, so we'll send you over there. All right, guys. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. As always, greatly appreciate you guys. Oh, wow. I took off my live stream. Did I, like, cancel myself? Oh, no, there we are. Yeah, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up if you have not done so yet. And, yeah, I'm going to send you guys over to Badlands. Is there anything else? MyPillow.com, promo code CanCon. Great company to support over there. Fantastic products. I have every one of their products that I use. There's products I don't use that I don't have, but take us to somewhere boring, Bri. I can't do that. I'm going to take you over to Trump. That's not boring. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the deep state motherfuckers pay for this.
Open your eyes.